Imagine a world where survival is everything. A time when every day is a battle against starvation, predators, and the elements. Now picture a child in that world, unable to walk without stumbling, unable to hear danger approaching, needing constant care just to stay alive. Would you expect that child to be abandoned, left behind as a burden? Or would you believe that ancient humans, often painted as brutal survivors, chose to carry that child, protect her, and love her? Welcome to a story that flips everything you thought you knew about our prehistoric ancestors. This isn't about gold pyramids or lost cities. It's about the most revolutionary archaeological discovery of our time, proof that human compassion is older than civilization itself. Stick with me, because what we're about to uncover will change how you see humanity, past, present, and future. We've all heard the phrase survival of the fittest. It's practically a mantra when we talk about prehistoric life. Movies, books, and even some history lessons paint our ancestors as tough, no-nonsense people who prioritize strength and self-preservation. If you couldn't keep up, you were left behind. But what if that's only half the story? What if the real strength of early humans wasn't just in their muscles or tools, but in their hearts? Recent archaeological discoveries are turning this idea on its head, and they're doing it with hard evidence. Bones, DNA, and burials that tell a story of care, not competition. I remember growing up watching documentaries about cavemen and thinking they were all about hunting and fighting. But as I dug deeper into anthropology, I realized we've been selling our ancestors short. They weren't just surviving, they were building communities, sharing burdens, and showing kindness in ways we're only now beginning to understand. Today, we're diving into a discovery that proves this: the presence of individuals with Down syndrome in prehistoric societies, not as outcasts, but as cherished members. This isn't just a science story, it's a human one, and it's going to make you rethink what it means to be human. Let's start with the science, because this is where things get mind-blowing. For years, our archaeologists could only guess at certain conditions by studying bones. A deformed skull or an unusual limb might hint at a disability, but it was never certain. Then came ancient DNA analysis, a game changer that's like a time machine for genetics. By extracting DNA from ancient remains, scientists can now spot specific genetic markers like the extra copy of chromosome 21 that causes Down syndrome. This condition, which affects development and often requires lifelong support, would have been a visible difference in prehistoric times. And here's the kicker: scientists didn't just find one case. They found multiple cases spanning thousands of years in different cultures. In a massive study, researchers from places like the University of Adelaide and the Max Planck Institute screened nearly 10,000 ancient human remains. They found 6 confirmed cases of Down syndrome, plus 1 case of another genetic condition called Edwards syndrome. These cases stretch from 500 years ago in Ireland to 500 years ago in Spain. That's not a fluke, it's a pattern. But it's not just the DNA that's telling the story. It's how these individuals were treated, buried, and remembered that's rewriting history. Take the case of a Neanderthal child from a cave in Spain, nicknamed Tina by researchers. Her tiny skull fragment, barely a few centimeters long, revealed something incredible through advanced CT scanning abnormalities in her inner ear that point to Down syndrome. Tina lived to at least 6 years old despite severe hearing loss and balance issues that would have made survival in a nomadic hunter-gatherer group incredibly tough. Think about that. This wasn't a world with hospitals or social services. Every day, Tina's family and community chose to support her, carrying her through migrations, protecting her from danger she couldn't hear or see. That's not just care, that's love. When I first read about Tina, I couldn't stop thinking about what her life must have been like. We often imagine Neanderthals as gruff, almost animalistic, but this discovery paints a different picture. It makes me wonder, how many other stories of kindness have we missed because we've been so focused on weapons and hunting tools? The fact that a Neanderthal group invested so much in a child who couldn't contribute in the traditional sense tells me they valued something deeper than survival. They valued connection, family, maybe even the idea that every life matters. This challenges the dog-eat-dog narrative we've been fed. I mean, think about it. If prehistoric people were only about survival, why bother with someone who needed constant care? Why not focus all your energy on the strongest hunters? The answer is that humans even 50,000 years ago weren't just calculating machines. They had emotions, bonds, and a sense of responsibility that went beyond biology. Tina's story isn't just about Down syndrome, it's about the roots of empathy, the kind of empathy that still shapes our world today. Let's put this in perspective. In modern times, we celebrate stories of communities rallying around people with disabilities, but we often think of that as a civilized trait, something that came with laws and ethics. But what if compassion isn't a product of civilization? What if it's the foundation that made civilization possible? Without that instinct to care for each other, would we have built villages, cities, or societies? I think Tina's story is a clue that kindness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity that's been with us from the start. To make this hit home, let's imagine a day in Tina's life based on what we know about Neanderthal life and her condition. Picture a crisp morning in eastern Spain, 50,000 years ago. The group is packing up their camp ready to follow a herd of deer. Tina, maybe 6 years old, sits on a hide watching her mother grind ochre for paint. She's small for her age, her movements a bit unsteady. When the group starts moving, Tina's mother lifts her onto her back, securing her with a sling made of animal sinew. As they trek across rocky terrain, Tina sways dizzy from her inner ear issues. Her older brother walks beside them, steadying her when the vertigo hits. At night, when the group huddles around a fire, someone shares their portion of roasted meat with Tina, knowing she can't chew the toughest pieces. This isn't just a guess, it's grounded in the evidence. Tina's survival to age 6 means someone or many someones made choices every day to keep her safe. Maybe her mother sang to her during vertigo spells, or her cousins played games to keep her engaged. These small acts of care add up to something huge, a community that saw Tina not as a burden, but as one of their own. Now let's jump forward to another example, this time from 300 years ago on the Greek island of Aegina. Archaeologists found a toddler about 12 to 16 months old with Down syndrome. Her burial was unlike any other in the area. She was laid to rest with a necklace of 93 beads, glass faience and carnelian crafted with care. Imagine the hands that strung those beads. Maybe a parent or grandparent wanting their child to carry something beautiful into the next world. In a society where resources were scarce, that necklace wasn't just decoration, it was a statement of love, a way of saying, you were special to us. I can't help but think of a modern parallel. A few years ago, I read about a family in a small town who lost their daughter with Down syndrome at a young age. They buried her with her favorite stuffed animal and a bracelet she loved. The whole community came together, bringing flowers and sharing stories of how her smile lit up their lives. That instinct to honor someone who touched your heart, it's the same instinct we see in that Greek burial. It's not just about grief, it's about celebrating a life, no matter how short or how different. Another striking case comes from Iron Age Spain around 2800 years ago. In a place called Navarra, archaeologists found infants with Down syndrome buried inside homes, not in cemeteries. This was rare because cremation was the norm back then. These babies were laid to rest with bronze rings and seashells, items that carried deep cultural meaning. Picture a family preparing that burial, choosing a spot under their home's floor, placing a tiny ring on their child's finger. It's heartbreaking but also beautiful, a reminder that even in ancient times, people found ways to make loss meaningful. These stories remind me of something I saw in a documentary about a Native American tribe in the Pacific Northwest. When a child with special needs passed away, the community held a ceremony wrapping the child in a blanket woven with patterns unique to their family. It wasn't just a funeral, it was a way of weaving that child's memory into the community's story. That same impulse to honor, to remember, to care, connects us to those Iron Age parents in Spain. It's like a thread running through time, tying us to our ancestors. So what did these discoveries tell us? First, they shatter the myth that prehistoric life was all about brute strength. If anything, these stories show that cooperation and compassion were just as critical to survival as hunting or tool-making. A group that cared for its vulnerable members was stronger, not weaker, because that care built trust and loyalty. Imagine a Neanderthal group where everyone fends for themselves, no one shares food, no one helps the injured. That group wouldn't last long. But a group that lifts each other up, that carries a child like Tina through tough times, that's a group that thrives. This also makes me think about how we view disability today. In modern societies, we've made huge strides in inclusion, but there's still this lingering idea that people with disabilities are somehow less productive or a burden. I've seen this firsthand in debates about healthcare or education funding, where people argue about cost instead of value. But Tina's story and the stories of those buried with necklaces and rings show that our ancestors didn't see it that way. They saw worth in every person, not because of what they could do, but because of who they were. I think there's a lesson here about priorities. In a world obsessed with efficiency and competition, we sometimes forget that caring for each other isn't a luxury, it's what makes us human. When I look at how companies cut corners to save money, or how governments argue over who deserves support, I can't help but think we've lost something our ancestors understood. They didn't have spreadsheets or budgets, but they knew that a community is only as strong as its weakest member. These discoveries also raise big questions. Why do we see so many cases in Iron Age Spain? Is it because of better preservation? Or were those communities especially inclusive? What about adults with Down syndrome? Where are their stories? The DNA evidence we have so far focuses on infants and young children, but there could be older individuals in untested remains. And how did daily life work for these communities? Did they have specific roles or rituals to support vulnerable members? These are the kinds of questions that keep archaeologists up at night, and they're opening new doors for research. As we wrap up, let's bring this full circle. The most important archaeological discovery isn't a treasure or a monument, it's the proof that compassion has always been part of who we are. From a Neanderthal child in a Spanish cave to a toddler in Greece buried with a necklace, these stories show that our ancestors chose to care even when it was hard. They didn't have writing or religion to guide them. They just had their instincts, and those instincts told them to protect the vulnerable, to honor the different, to love without conditions. So here's your takeaway. Kindness isn't a weakness, and it's not a modern invention. It's a strength that's been with us for tens of thousands of years, and it's still our greatest asset. The next time you're tempted to think the world is too harsh or that people only look out for themselves, remember Tina. Remember the necklace in Greece, the seashells in Spain, and ask yourself, how can I carry that same compassion into my life? Maybe it's helping a neighbor standing up for someone who's struggling, or just listening when someone needs to be heard. Those small acts, they're what keep humanity going, just like they did 50,000 years ago. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the hidden truths of our past. Let's keep exploring what it means to be human together.